Have you ever wondered why so many people enter the world of making money online full of hope and, shortly after, give up completely frustrated without seeing a single real result? Perhaps you yourself have experienced this. That initial excitement, the feeling that you've finally found an opportunity to change your life, achieve financial freedom, work from anywhere. And then, days or weeks later, everything seems to crumble. Nothing works as promised. The money doesn't come in. Motivation begins to dwindle, and a silent doubt appears. Is this really for me? The truth is that the personal finance and online income market has never been so booming. Every day new videos, courses, promises, and methods that guarantee quick results emerge. Affiliate marketing, dropshipping, digital marketing, investments, it seems like there are thousands of possible paths to building wealth online. But, at the same time, there's a detail that almost no one talks about, and it's precisely this detail that separates those who grow financially from those who remain stuck in the same place. Have you ever noticed how easy everything seems when someone is explaining it? In just a few minutes, you watch a video and think, that's it, now it'll work. But when it's your turn to apply it, the reality is completely different. Sales don't happen, traffic doesn't come, the strategies seem confusing, and that dream of making money online starts to seem distant. Have you ever experienced this? And the most curious thing is that, most of the time, people don't fail because of a lack of effort. They try, they buy courses, watch classes, research, follow tutorials. But even so, they can't get anywhere. This generates even greater frustration because it seems unfair. After all, if so many people say it works, why isn't it working for you? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you, and perhaps even completely change the way you view money on the internet. There's a very common idea that's constantly repeated, that making money online is simply a matter of finding the right method, as if there were a hidden formula, a shortcut that, once discovered, would solve everything. And it's precisely this belief that keeps thousands of people trapped in an endless cycle, jumping from strategy to strategy, always searching for the next big opportunity. But here's the point that almost no one dares to say. The problem is rarely in the method. While you believe you only need to find the right way, you continue to ignore something much deeper, something that directly influences your financial results, your decisions, and even your persistence. And without realizing it, you end up repeating the same patterns, making the same mistakes, and moving further and further away from building true wealth. What makes it all the more dangerous is that this cycle is silent. It doesn't look like a mistake. On the contrary, it looks like progress. You're learning, consuming content, testing new things. But, deep down, nothing really changes. And this is precisely where the difference lies between the 90% who fail when trying to make money online and the few who manage to grow consistently and build a solid foundation in personal finance. But to truly understand this, you need to see what's behind this pattern. And that's what we're going to start exploring now. And perhaps, as you're listening to this, something has already started to make sense inside you. Because deep down, it's not just about making money online, it's about understanding why, even trying so hard, the results don't appear as they should. And when that realization starts to sink in, everything changes. The way you see the process, the choices you make, even the way you deal with your own mistakes. Now, I want to ask you a sincere question. At what point in this cycle have you recognized yourself so far? Was it the initial excitement that didn't last long, the frustration of trying and not seeing results, or that feeling of always starting from scratch? If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what touched you the most or what your biggest challenge has been when trying to make money online. Honestly, I read these comments and besides helping me better understand those on this side, it also creates a space where other people realize they're not alone on this journey. And there's one more important thing. When you like this video, it might seem simple, but it helps much more than it appears. It's the signal the platform needs to understand that this type of content about personal finance, wealth building, and financial growth mindset needs to reach more people who are going through exactly what you've already gone through or are still going through. And if you truly want to change the way you handle money, grow digitally, and build something consistent in the long term, subscribe to the channel. Because here, the idea isn't to sell you quick fixes, but to show you what really makes a difference even if that's not always the easiest thing to hear. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. Creating a community of people who are seeking real evolution, without false shortcuts. And now that you've begun to see this pattern more clearly, there's an even deeper layer that needs to be understood. Something that explains why so many people remain trapped, even after realizing they're making mistakes. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a part of this journey that almost no one shows. The silent behind the scenes of those who try, fail, adjust, and still feel like they're not making any progress. It's not just about technique, strategy, or choosing the best model for making money online. It's about the invisible decisions you make every day, often without realizing it, and that end up completely shaping your results. There's a hidden truth in all of this. Most people don't fail because of a lack of information, but because of how they interpret and react to the process. Think about it. How many times have you started something with full energy and, at the first sign of difficulty, already felt that weight, that inner doubt that makes everything seem more complicated than it really is? This doesn't happen by chance. There's an emotional pattern behind it, a mindset that has been built up over time, based on unrealistic expectations and constant comparisons. And when this is combined with the world of personal finance and wealth building, the impact is even greater. Because, contrary to what many believe, making money online isn't just about doing more, but about thinking differently. It's an internal transformation before any external results. But this transformation isn't comfortable. It demands consistency when no one is watching, patience when results haven't yet arrived, and, above all, clarity to avoid falling into the same traps that keep most people stuck. And that's where many people get stuck. Not for lack of ability, but for not being able to sustain this new way of seeing the game for long enough. The journey starts to feel heavy, confusing, and little by little, the person returns to square one, believing they need to try something new, when in fact, they haven't even explored enough what they were already doing. If this resonated with you on any level, comment below. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a critical point in this journey that almost no one realizes. The promise that brought you here might be exactly what's preventing you from moving forward. From the beginning, you've been exposed to a very seductive narrative, the idea that making money online is quick, simple, and accessible to anyone, almost like pressing a button and watching the money fall. And it's not hard to understand why this attracts so many people. This promise speaks directly to the desire for transformation, to the wish to change your life without years of effort. But here's one of the biggest revelations of this process. When something seems too easy, there's usually a layer that isn't being shown. The behind-the-scenes aspects are ignored. The failed attempts don't appear. The time invested, the constant adjustments, the difficult decisions, all of that is left out of the main narrative. And, without realizing it, you begin your journey with an expectation that's misaligned with reality. The impact of this is silent, but powerful, because when results don't come as quickly as promised, your mind automatically interprets it as failure, not as part of the process, but as a sign that something is wrong with you or the path you've chosen. And it's precisely at this moment that most people give up, not because it wouldn't work, but because they believed in an incomplete version of the truth. And the more you consume these kinds of promises, the more you reinforce this cycle. It always seems like there's a new, better opportunity, a faster method, a more efficient strategy waiting for you right there. But, deep down, this creates a constant dependence on novelty, preventing you from delving deeper, developing real skills, and building something truly solid. And when you start to see this clearly, you realize that the problem was never a lack of options. It was an excess of illusions disguised as opportunities. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a silent mistake that shapes virtually every decision made by those trying to make money online. The short-term mindset. And here's the truth that few people accept at the beginning of their journey. You're not just looking for quick results. You've been conditioned to expect them. Everything around you reinforces this idea of immediacy, quick rewards, instant validation, promises of almost automatic transformation. But when this logic enters the game of personal finance and wealth building, the impact is completely different, because making money online doesn't respond well to rushing. It responds to consistency, accumulated learning, and decisions that seem small in the short term but build something solid over time. However, when your mindset is stuck in the present, any delay already seems like a failure. Any obstacle becomes a sign that it's not worth continuing. And it's at this point that most people begin to sabotage their own journey without realizing it. You start something today, already expecting a return tomorrow. You invest a few days, maybe a few weeks, and when the results don't come, your mind creates justifications. This doesn't work. Maybe it's not for me. I'll try something else. It seems like a logical decision, but behind the scenes, what's happening is a pattern repeating itself. You don't give any strategy enough time to mature. You don't develop the necessary skills, and you never reach the point where the results really start to appear. This constant search for immediate results creates an invisible cycle where you're always busy, always trying, but never consistently evolving. And the most curious thing is that this gives the feeling of progress, when in reality it's keeping you in the same place. And when you start to see the impact of this mindset on your decisions, something changes, because you realize that the problem was never a lack of effort, but rather the way you measure time and progress within this journey. Comment below. I need to change my mindset. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's an even more subtle trap that makes many people believe they are evolving when in reality they are completely stagnant, information overload without real action. And this seems contradictory, because learning is important. Seeking knowledge is part of the journey, but there's an invisible line where learning ceases to be growth and becomes mere consumption. You watch one video, then another, save content, take notes, understand concepts, and for a few moments, you even feel a false sense of progress. It seems like you're preparing, structuring yourself, getting closer to the result. But behind the scenes, something essential isn't happening: application. And without application, there is no transformation, no validation, no result. The hidden truth here is that knowledge only gains value when it is put into action. Without action, it becomes mere accumulation. And the most dangerous thing is that this pattern is comfortable. It's much easier to keep learning than to expose yourself to error, than to test something and not get immediate feedback, than to deal with the real frustration of the process. So, without realizing it, you enter a cycle where you are always almost ready, always just a little more, and I'll start. But that start never comes. Meanwhile, decisions are being postponed, practice is being avoided, and the impact on your journey is enormous. Because those who truly grow aren't those who know the most, but those who execute best. It's those who test, adjust, make mistakes, and keep going. But to reach that level, you need to move away from this passive consumption mode and adopt an active stance, even without having all the answers. And when you start to realize that maybe you don't need more information, but rather more targeted action, something changes internally. Because the responsibility returns to you. Comment below. Less theory, more action. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because there's a behavior that seems harmless at first, but has a gigantic impact on your journey: the constant need to change methods. And here's the truth that few admit's not a lack of opportunity, it's an excess of distraction. You start something, dedicate yourself for a while, learn the basics. But even before reaching a deeper level, a new promise, a new possibility, a new great chance for transformation emerges. And then, what almost everyone does happens. You abandon what you were building and start over from scratch in a different direction. Behind the scenes, this looks like movement, like evolution. But in practice, it's repetition. Because each new beginning comes with the same doubts, the same insecurities, and the same learning curve you've faced before. The most curious thing is that this constant switching creates a very strong illusion of progress. You feel like you're exploring new paths, discovering new things, adapting, but you never stay long enough to reap real results. And this doesn't happen because of a lack of ability, but because of a mindset that has been conditioned to always seek the best path, when in reality, what generates results is depth, not novelty. There's a huge difference between intentionally testing strategies and simply running away from difficulty. Because every method, without exception, has a phase where it seems not to work. There's a moment when results don't appear, when everything seems slow and uncertain, and it's precisely at this point that most people give up. Not because they chose wrong, but because they couldn't endure the process. And when you start to see this pattern clearly, you realize that maybe the problem was never the path chosen, but the time you spent on it. Comment below. I'm going to stop starting over. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because there's a point that many people avoid addressing, but which completely changes the course of this journey: the lack of real skills. And here, we're not talking about knowing about, but about knowing how to do. There's a huge difference between understanding concepts and being able to transform that into practical results. Behind the scenes, online money doesn't respond to accumulated theory. It responds to quality execution. Many people enter this field believing that all it takes is following a step-by-step process, copying a model, or applying a ready-made formula. But the hidden truth is that, behind any consistent result, there are skills being used all the time: clear communication, the ability to sell an idea, an understanding of human behavior, and the discipline to persevere, even without immediate validation. And these skills don't appear overnight. They are built, refined, and tested in practice. The problem is that developing skills requires something many people try to avoid: exposure to error. It requires trial and error, adjustment, and discomfort. And when that doesn't happen, the person may continue trying to make money online, but always superficially, without enough depth to generate real impact. It's like trying to build something solid without a foundation. Eventually, everything collapses or simply doesn't get anywhere. And here's where an important mindset shift comes in. Stop focusing solely on how much I can earn and start looking at who I need to become to generate that result. Because when you develop your skills, money ceases to be a gamble and becomes a natural consequence. And when you start to see this more clearly, you realize that maybe it wasn't a lack of opportunity. It was a lack of preparation. Comment below. I need to develop my skills. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because this is where the real turning point happens. The one that separates those who keep trying from those who actually start building something solid. The 10% who manage to grow in the digital world don't have access to a magic secret, nor have they discovered a hidden shortcut. What they did was adjust their mindset and, above all, the way they make decisions along the way. While most seek speed, they focus on direction. While many want immediate results, they commit to the process, even when there is no quick validation. There is a different clarity there, a long-term vision that completely changes the impact of daily actions. And this doesn't mean the path is easier; on the contrary, it is often more challenging, because it demands consistency when there is no applause. It demands discipline when motivation is absent. Behind the scenes, these 10% understand something that transforms everything. The game isn't about always getting it right. It's about staying long enough to learn from mistakes and evolve. They don't jump from method to method with every difficulty. They don't get stuck just consuming information, and they don't depend on motivation to act. They build a foundation, develop skills, and treat each attempt as part of a larger process. And perhaps the biggest revelation here is this: they aren't necessarily smarter or more talented. They've simply decided to play a different game. A game where patience, consistency, and mindset carry more weight than any single strategy. And when you start to see this more clearly, you realize that there's a more solid, more real and, at the same time, more demanding path waiting for those willing to step outside the norm. Comment below. Now I understand the game. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because building a financial growth mindset isn't just about changing how you think about money, it's about changing how you approach your own decisions. And this transformation begins in a place that few people pay attention to: how you interpret time, effort, and progress within your journey. Most people view money as an end goal, something that needs to be achieved as quickly as possible. But those who truly evolve begin to see money as a direct reflection of value, skill, and consistency. This is a silent shift, but with a gigantic impact. Because when you understand this, you stop just seeking results and start building a foundation that sustains those results in the long term. Behind the scenes, this kind of mindset changes everything. You start making more strategic decisions, stop acting impulsively, and begin to see each step as part of a larger process. It's no longer about getting it right quickly, but about making sense along the way. And that requires maturity. It requires patience. It requires the ability to keep going, even when the return hasn't yet materialized. There's also a hidden truth in this process. Financial growth is directly linked to your personal growth. The more you evolve as a person in discipline, clarity, and way of thinking, the more prepared you become to handle opportunities, challenges, and results. And without that foundation, any gain tends to be unstable and fleeting. And when you start integrating this vision into your routine, something changes from the inside out. Because you stop chasing money and start building the conditions for it to be a consequence. Comment below. I am building my growth. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because, ultimately, everything we've discussed so far points to a simple truth, but one that has a huge impact when you truly accept it. The problem was never that you weren't able to make money online. It was the mental model you were taught to follow from the beginning of this journey. And when you start to see this clearly, something changes almost immediately. That feeling of being lost, of trying and not getting anywhere, begins to make sense. Not as a personal failure, but as the result of decisions made based on wrong expectations, incomplete promises, and a distorted view of what truly builds financial growth. There's a weight lifted from your shoulders when you understand this, because you realize you don't need to start all over again, or rush after yet another novelty. What needs to change isn't the path itself, but the way you walk it. Your mindset, your choices, your consistency. That's where true transformation happens. And this change isn't something external. It doesn't depend on a new opportunity or a revolutionary method. It happens behind the scenes of your daily decisions, in how you react to challenges, in your ability to persevere even when there's no immediate validation. It's a silent but extremely powerful process. When you reach this level of awareness, the journey ceases to be confusing and begins to gain direction. You start to see patterns, avoid pitfalls, and, most importantly, build something with more intention and clarity. And it is precisely at this point that most people never reach. Not because they couldn't, but because they give up before truly understanding the game. And maybe now you're starting to see this game in a new light. Comment below. Now everything makes sense. And if you've made it this far, you've already realized that this conversation wasn't just about making money online. It was about seeing your own journey more clearly, without illusions and with much more awareness. And that's exactly the kind of content I want to continue bringing you, straight to the point, in depth, and focused on what truly generates transformation. So, if this really resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. Not as an automatic gesture, but as a decision to keep evolving, to expose yourself to ideas that take you out of autopilot and set you in motion with more intention. And so I know you stayed with me until the end of this journey. Write in the comments, "I'm with you until the end." This shows me who is truly committed to seeing beyond the obvious and strengthens the connection we built throughout the video. If at any point you felt that something here resonated differently, that made you reflect, leave a like. It's a simple way to signal that this type of message needs to keep reaching people. Not only you, but other people who are also trying to understand this path. And before you leave, there's a video here that perfectly complements everything we've discussed. It delves even deeper into this mindset and shows how to apply it in practice. Click there and continue with me, because this journey doesn't end here.